There's no way to reach the masses in the same way with the same effectiveness with like such on such a grand scale, right? That can grab their attention and like really, make them get an emotional connection to the brand.
Hi, welcome to Lumos Talks, powered by Blindspot, the weekly show on growth marketing straight from the people in the field doing the work at some of the most creative companies. I'm Seb, I'm the ECD at Blindspot. This is Bogdan.
In marketing at Blindspot.
There you go. And I'm super happy to introduce our guest today. I've known Matt for about 10 years, a fractional marketing advisor for massive brands like Med.com, Zoomlo, and generally, you're the partnerships guy I talk to. But Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Excited to chat with you guys.
Yeah. You actually came to we when we did the thing in Austin last year, we did a Lumos house. Matt was a guest in person. Thank you for coming out to that. Did you have a good time when we did that?
I had a great time. We had a nice little chat down memory lane, right? Talking about our year collaborating on the fandom of influencers and apps and everything, in between.
On the one thing you and I have done that didn't actually work.
I don't know if you could say it didn't actually work. Well, we didn't have a lot of support either.
Yeah, that's true. It didn't work. But Matt, why don't you give us a rundown of how you got going?
Oh man. So I'll give you the quick and dirty because I've been in the game for a while now. Started off learning the digital ad network game, digital media, really just kind of at the base ground of digital media, learning the ad game. Worked for an international network. From there, I kind of jumped with some coworkers over to MySpace. And that kind of started like my really fun music career for, a little bit over a decade. I was an integrated marketing manager at MySpace Music. It was a fun time building MySpace, doing all the cool fun integrated campaigns. We like to call it marrying bands with brands. And then
I remember
that. From there, went over to Pandora Radio and launched their artist partnerships and programming team. So, basically the conduit between all the labels, artist management, and Pandora Radio and their sales team. So reactively and proactively creating both digital and experiential content. Did some really, really fun stuff with them. Like I like to say, life was a concert when I was with them, traveling around, seeing all the different shows, going to all the festivals. Launching the still running Pandora South by Southwest Discovery Den, and a lot of cool fun stuff. Then I kind of got into the influencer game for a little while. That's when you and I met, right?
Yeah.
When influencers kind of started soaring and kind of taking over the scene for a while. But luckily I got out of that almost as quickly as I got into it and found myself in the cannabis space for a little while. Being in Southern California, it's kind of natural that it came onto the scene and it was kind of blowing up everywhere. Just kind of gravitated to it. There was a lot of opportunity there. It was a lot of fun, kind of the wild, wild west for a while, trying to be creative, breaking things, figuring out what worked from a marketing perspective because there was so much regulation around it. And had so much fun there. Really kind of like a guerrilla marketing team that we built and executed some fun stuff with. But I found myself shortly after being there for a little while at Therabody. It was still Theragun at the time. Joined Theragun to build a proprietary CBD line with them. As we launched it, we rebranded the company to Therabody, turning it into a wellness company at the same time, and launched the first ever, and I still believe to this day, the first only fully USDA organic CBD line. And the thing that's so unique about that is that CBD is not federally regulated. However, the USDA organic seal is federally regulated by the FDA. So by de facto, being the only fully USDA organic line, we were the only fully regulated FDA government regulated product line. So that allowed us to get into a lot of big box retailers, really have like the guarantee from the legal perspective and the regulatory perspective that we had a quality product that big boxes were comfortable putting on their shelves, like Dick's Sporting Goods, Nordstrom's, Macy's, et cetera, PGA Superstore. So that was probably one of my biggest accomplishments and one of the things I'm most proud of outside of like a handful of concerts that we threw back in the day. And then from there, the pandemic happened. Things went kind of crazy, decided to hop out of LA, relocate to Austin, Texas, where I'm at right now. And then just started consulting for all different brands, mostly in the tech and the wellness space for the most part. As you can see, my career, I've really, focused on emerging markets from social media, social networking, uh, 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 digital radio, influencers, cannabis. Now I'm starting working with meds.com, which is also one of their biggest brands is Blue Chew, which a lot of people are familiar with, and really elevating them. And then also working with a new brand called Zoomlo, which we're about to launch, which is a mental health app which connects clinicians with everyday people when they need help on call.
What's really interesting about you is you've always been the guy that can. I always feel that you connect culture with like emerging markets, and also how to talk entertainment too. I think that's why we bonded so much, because when you go into these big tech establishments, whilst Pandora is a music company and MySpace Music was a music company and all this, that you have to deal with entertainment people in a different way. And I thought that you were really good at bridging that gap. I want to talk about Pandora for a second, because Pandora always fascinates me, because it's one of those things that I never think of it as a leader of a streaming service. The reality, though, the numbers are totally different. Streaming radio, whatever you want to call it. My point is, I always forget how big Pandora was or is. I don't know if it still is.
Oh yeah,
but it was like number one on stream. Like it was pretty much the first. It was bigger than Spotify at some point, right? In the early
for a
days,
long
I
time.
believe.
We were,
Yeah,
Pandora, there was like Songkick and like there were some other like small ones that kind of came on early, but Pandora really was like the first kind of behemoth or like, pillar of a streaming service that was out there. We
yeah,
grew pretty rapid. I was employee number 95-ish. And I think probably like 70 of those employees at the time were engineers building the algorithm. So like not a whole lot on like the marketing operations business side of things.
yeah.
And we grew numbers wise pretty rapidly. I think like in like the first 4 years, like we eclipsed 100 million active users.
That's
And we're growing
fucking
pretty rapidly. And we were at close to, I think, six figures in users when Spotify launched. So I think
yeah,
Spotify, like, I wouldn't say that like Spotify, I wouldn't go as far as to say like Spotify wouldn't be where it is today without Pandora Radio, but I do think Pandora Radio kind of broke through the wall, kind of helped people with that learning curve of like, what is streaming radio? How do you use it? Are we comfortable with it? Spent a lot of time bringing awareness to it. And as you guys know, like the more, as competitors come on that are good competitors, right? That are doing things the right way, building good products, the more, players you have in the space, the entire space rises, right? You can only reach more people, give people, different avenues of what they want. So, what, I feel like Pandora like kind of set the foundation, but then Spotify came in and did everything right that Pandora was afraid to do from a creative, from a fun perspective. Like Pandora sold off too quickly, had to answer to shareholders, right, and had to
yeah.
answer to and had to answer to the board once we went public, which was great, a lot of fun, right? But it changes the way a business operates. Spotify stayed true to their creative, like music self.
Now I think that their business model is starting to show that they're now getting in really troubled waters. I think that the business model for Pandora was a lot more easier to digest than maybe Spotify's business model. But I like what you said about competitors, because we often at Blind Spot we think that, and our CEO, we don't fear competitors. Like we actually feel that we can all learn a lot from everybody. There's obviously Bogdan and I, we sit in marketing meetings and we hear about like what other companies that book digital out of home are doing. And you have some people that they fear that, but our CEO, Bogdan and myself, we all like to lean into. I mean, actually, I'm probably the most fearful out of the three of them, but we have a healthy conversation about it. And it does remind me of those early days of streaming, where it's like you can learn a lot from the people around you. You don't have to be scared of other people trying to do the same thing as you or something similar.
Well, and a lot of times, in emerging markets, it's people doing things for the first time. So like you're trying something, right? Pandora's trying something for the first time. We're learning. Spotify's taking notes. Spotify's trying something for the first time. We're learning. We're taking notes, right? And then we're trying to do it our own way within the systems that we've built and within like, the goalposts that each company has, each brand has.
Nice.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need to be the first at doing anything. You just have to be kind of better, right? And you have to figure out how your people want to use what you're selling. I think that's more important. And I think it's really healthy to take the good bits from all the other competitors if that's something you want to do.
What you just said really hits home, because I think like, geez, back in like the early 2000s, maybe the early 2010s, like good marketing was just marketing your product right, and like putting it everywhere where people
Exactly.
can like kind of bump into it, right? Now marketing has evolved and it's so much more customized, where like you have to meet them where they are, not hope that they bump into
Mhm.
you have to speak to them on their level, not just like, right? So like if you're speaking to multiple demos and in multiple geos, right, like it's really become so intricate in how you have to speak to people to reach the same amount of people with the same effectiveness.
Yeah.
Exactly. Matt, I want to ask, I want to circle back. So we discussed a lot so far about how you have worked a lot with emerging markets and new technologies, and you picked away on making them a bit more mainstream. What's one of the decisions in your career that shaped where you are? Might have been unexpected, might have been working in the cannabis industry, right? You didn't know that this would shape your future endeavor at Therabody, where you would launch that certified CBD line. But what was one of the decisions that defined your whole career?
Great question. I mean, that's probably the number one decision that defined my career was, the lunch that I had with Ben Nazarian, where he kind of like told me like, let's do this, give me a number. And I decided to leave Ease because I was very happy at Ease. I was, starting to really make some waves in the cannabis industry. We did some really fun stuff there. But the cannabis industry is still to this day a little bit of the wild wild west, and still kind of like
Mhm.
trying to find its footing with government regulation and whatnot. So I saw an opportunity to go do something and help build a company, because at that time it was Theragun, and Theragun was under 100 employees, and it was still a very small company, and it only had one product. And
And not
the
a great
problem,
name either.
I thought Theragun was a solid name. The branding evolved, right?
The word gun and a thing always throw. I get that it was but it's in all seriousness. Now you probably wouldn't launch a product with the word gun. I don't know. I was
Correct,
it was
but
a bit.
everybody calls it the gun. Like whether we tell them not to or whatnot, they all called it the gun. Um,
Yeah,
like I'm talking about like physical therapists, like athletes, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
But being able to, uh, you know, join that company, join Theragun at such an inflection point, and build a product that that basically was the catalyst for evolving their brand from a single product to a health and wellness brand, and a more holistic wellness brand. I think is pretty revolutionary, because if you look at Therabody now, it is no longer led by the Theragun device. The
Mhm.
Theragun
which is
device
amazing.
might be their fourth or fifth bestseller now. It's no longer the hero. The new hero is the face stuff. It's the wand. It's all the new stuff that has evolved once we broke through and made it a wellness company. So I think,
Yeah,
my influence, my impact there was more than just launching a first class CBD line. It was helping, and I didn't do this alone. Obviously, there were a lot of people there, in partnership with Ben and Dr. Jason. But being able to kind of break the mold of what Therabody or Theragun was, and
Mhm.
help it evolve into what it is today in Therabody, with products that have to be bought, consistently on subscription, and not just one product that you buy and it lasts for 4 or 5 years.
right, right. Yeah, they did a really good job of like hooking in, taking a consumer base that was probably a one product consumer base and turning it into a real holistic brand that you would go back to.
Well, and what really was hard was they took it from they evolved it from a brand that was really going after, physical therapists, uh, uh, clinicians in that space, going after the athletes, whether it was like the professional athletes or like the recreational athletes. They really for a long time were going after a pretty strong segment, that was had a strong female, portion to it, but dominant in the male demographic, right? If we're just being honest. And then they kind of flipped the script, and now they are fully dominant within the female demographic, making most of their products geared towards the female demographic, which is, as we all know, a much different demographic when it comes to how they spend, the velocity in which, the consistency in which, the word of mouth and how they talk about their products amongst their groups, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that evolution of that brand, people don't talk about that enough.
Yeah. Let's talk about money, and let's talk about money and ease. When you were at Ease, you were the first cannabis company I ever saw spending money on out of home. I would probably argue you probably were the first, at least in California.
We were the first from a massive reach perspective. We were spending, there might have been like a company or a brand that had like one billboard here or two billboards in town, but we had, I think the numbers were like 75 or 80% of all the available billboards that you could advertise cannabis on throughout the entire state of California.
Oh, wow.
We monopolized it. We were spending over $1 million a month in billboards. Because of the regulations, because of the restrictions, we weren't able to do a whole lot on social. We were not able to do a whole lot on paid or on digital. We were really restricted to what sites we were on. Even from an affiliate perspective, we had high restrictions from like what affiliate networks we could work with, what affiliate sites we could work with, or that were really open to working with us, just because it was still such a gray area of what was allowed, what wasn't allowed, what could potentially happen. Will your insurance, will your bank shut you off if they feel you're doing business with a cannabis company? So we really leaned into out of home, and we bought so much inventory, and we knew it was working because we were able to attribute our other channels with different means of how they were performing. So by deduction, we were able to see, all right, if they are all doing this, then out of home has to be doing the rest of this. I have been cemented as an out of home, billboards, bus stops, like, murals. Like, out of home is, to me, a necessity for brands. I think a lot of brands are scared of it because it's hard to attribute, right, in a very clean, succinct way. But in my experience, it really moves the needle and drives awareness on a level that you don't get with other channels.
Yeah, I mean, but it's funny you say the attribute thing, because obviously being a digital out-of-home provider, Blind Spot is able to do that. It goes back to a saying I heard many years ago that was 50% of my outdoor advertising is working. I just don't know what 50%. Right? Back of when you would just book the stat things and you would have to be like, we're seeing the sales, but I can't tell you where it's coming from. But obviously now we've been able to grab people's mobile ID and been able to track like consumer behaviors. It's getting a lot more where you can actually see where it's working. And that's actually a lot of, it's why a lot of retailers come to us, because we can actually direct people into stores so we can actually map the user behavior from seeing and being near a display and actually going into a store. But you're right. I mean, this was the challenges we had to deal with 10 years ago. It was like, I know my shit's working. I couldn't really tell you where it's coming from. Yeah.
Well, and from a marketing perspective, that's so unique, right? Because like when you're on the digital side of things, you're like, this ad, this copy, right? On the billboard side of things, you might have 4 different billboards with 4 different copies, right? And you're not sure which one's grabbing their attention, or maybe it's more than one. Like that, like it's just a different game. There's no way to reach the masses in the same way with the same effectiveness with like on such a grand scale, right? That can grab their attention and like really, make them get an emotional connection to the brand, right? I don't get that same emotional connection when I see a 250 by 250 on ESPN when I go to check the scores for the day.
I do need to ask, because we are having a lot more clients related to the cannabis industry coming in Blind Spot. And getting approval from landlords is extremely tricky because you have to respect certain languages, certain things you can say and show. How did you get to work with those landlords to monopolize the entire industry?
So we were working with, the big guys. We were working with Clear Channel. We were working with Lamar. We had big contracts with them. Like I said, we had basically at the time we were still California only. But we covered 99% of California. So like I said, we monopolized. There were restrictions around, like, you could only have billboards. They had to be so far out of school districts. They couldn't be near schools. They couldn't be near certain things, like playgrounds, anywhere where, people under 18 congregated. They kind of tried to keep them away from there. But outside of that, if it was, Lamar, Clear Channel, they wanted the sales. And we were buying in such bulk. And this is something that I was excited to talk to you guys about, was that they would say no, or they would drive the prices up for the individual brands. So the individual brands couldn't afford these billboards because they were so high, because they kind of price them out, right? If you only want one billboard and you're a cannabis brand, that doesn't really help us grow Lamar Clear Channel. So, like, this is your price, right? We were buying so much in bulk that we got great prices. We were paying probably like 60 cents on the dollar for most of our placements, and we had all the good placements, right? So what we ended up doing was, because Ease was a marketplace, we ended up going to all the brands that we sold on our marketplace and said, hey, give us your marketing budget. We will partner with you and we will work together, and we will co-brand XYZ billboards in the sections that you want to help promote and that you want to grow your brand in. So if you guys just signed on to 4 dispensaries in San Diego, all right, let's figure out where the people from that travel to these dispensaries are coming from. Let's put billboards up in those areas and start to get them familiar with your brand. So when they walk in and the bud tender tells them about your brand, they have that cognitive connection from the billboard that they just saw and thought was cool, 20 minutes down the road or something like that. So they were supplementing our budget that we were paying, right? And we were co-branding. And then it was a great marriage, because we were being able to advertise ourselves on the billboard and advertise a brand and say, hey, come get it here right now. This is how you do it. And it gave them access that they wouldn't have been able to get or, afford otherwise. And it was a huge win for them, because, again, at that time, and still to this day, it's one of the best ways to advertise in that market, in that vertical. It really does get the best reach and the best attention.
Well,
all right, let's get to some rapid fire takeaways. Just hit us with your gut reaction. One channel you would double down on today?
Still SEO.
Oh, really?
Always. I feel like people are trying to say, like, SEO is dead, SEO is moving away. I disagree. The masses still go, and it works.
what's one metric that actually matters to you when you work?
The almighty metric, right? Net revenue.
Yeah, that's funny. One myth you strongly disagree with?
Give me a little direction. What's a myth somebody else disagreed with?
If you throw money at it, it'll grow.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. You have to be creative. You can't just throw money at stuff. People throw money at stuff all the time. That doesn't work.
And what's one piece of advice you could give to people?
One piece of advice for people wanting to work in marketing:
build your network, foster your network, never burn bridges in your network, learn from your network. I think that's super important. And then from a marketing perspective, like, I think what's really helped me evolve my career over the past 2 or 3 years is I've really dived into, like, listening to podcasts of marketing experts. Like, I go out, I'm walking the dog, I'm at the gym, I'm listening. I'm a YouTube music guy. I know I used to work for Pandora Radio. I'm a YouTube music guy now. I go onto YouTube Music and I listen to my different, like, I'm not listening to, like, the podcasts about, like, murder mystery crimes or, like, nonsense. Like, I'm listening to marketing podcasts, people talking about, like, how they executed this campaign, what strategies they've used, for this particular method. And they don't all relate apples to what I'm doing, but I can pull different things from how they do and what they do, and put that into my marketing stack. So I think that's my one recommendation, is, like, follow the marketing teachers, or, like, the people that are the gurus, or the people that are, like, breaking down campaigns and talking about different things and doing case studies and putting them out there. Like, learn from other marketers, because there's a lot of good marketers out there that are putting knowledge out there for people to just grab.
It's not a secret. And I think as well, again, one reason I love working with you is I think that that you're successful in marketing, advertising, and creative when you're collaborative, right?
Yeah.
You used to be soloed out, right? CMOs 20 years ago were always very siloed out and solo. Now I think there aren't any bad ideas, because we've all sat in meetings before where the idea that you probably thought wouldn't work was the idea that worked. And I truly believe that can come from the intern all the way to the CMO, right? I really do.
Yeah.
And so I guess a big reason why we're trying to do this is to democratize and get rid of those gatekeeping and try to share this marketing stuff with people that want to listen, because I think we'll get better marketers out of it. I think people will get better results. And I think collaborative is the way of the future.
Being collaborative, being creative, doing like not being afraid to like take some risks, right? But to your point, yeah, like you have to be, I think, great ideas can come from anywhere. And you just have to be open, like, and right. Like a great idea could come from somebody saying something, right? Like it's not that idea, but that idea spawned that idea. Right. So like you have to have everybody kind of like, talking out loud about what's on their mind and what's in their head.
Yeah. All right, Matt, thanks for coming in today, buddy. I really appreciate this. We really appreciate this.
Yeah. Great chat. Thanks for having me, guys. All right. Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.